What is life like living with Bob McDonnell here after all he's been through and after all you've been through?
Well, it's been good. In fact, I've had more time to spend with my brother the last few months, and granted, some of it has been really difficult times based on what he's gone through. But it's been a terrific time for me to reconnect with him and to be there for him and support him, pray together, exercise together, and that's been really important. He's been there for me my entire life as my eldest brother, and it's nice that I can now be here for him.
When you all pray together, what do you pray for?
We pray for several things. We pray for peace for Bob, that he just let this go. That frankly we all let this go. This is really, much of this is out of our hands. So we know that God will see us through this. But we've also prayed through this entire process for the judge and for the jurors, and we prayed for the prosecutors. We've prayed for Johnny Williams, and we've prayed for everyone involved in this case, and ultimately that the truth will come out in the end, and that people will understand that Bob is innocent, and he'll be fully vindicated.
When you pray for Johnny Williams, interestingly, what do you pray? What are you praying for him for?
We prayed for him throughout the trial, and we prayed before he testified.
I think people will find that extraordinary. After what Johnny Williams has put you and your family and Bob through, that you would be praying for Johnny Williams. I guess my question is, what are you praying for Johnny Williams to have happen to him?
Certainly nothing bad. We pray that he would certainly examine his own soul. He would examine how he testified, and perhaps one day be a little bit more truthful about that. It's hard to think about him getting full transactional immunity and then being on the stand to testify against my brother. So we just again pray that pray for him to at some point in time perhaps come to the truth about the situation.
One of the reasons for appeal is that enough information wasn't put out about that transactional immunity that he got. Were you disappointed that the jury did not hear more about all that Johnny Williams got for what he gave the federal prosecutors? Did that disappoint you?
Well, Andy, I actually wasn't in a lot of the trial because I served as a witness, so I wasn't in the day-to-day on the testimony, but I will say that I think, just generally speaking, the arrangement that was made with Mr. Williams, I think, in full disclosure, should have been made to the public, should have been made certainly to the jurors, absolutely.
Okay. When you're here with Bob, how has life changed? Is it different? Is there more? I don't know. What is he's got a lot of weight on him. A lot of good things have not happened to Bob McDonnell. Has it changed him?
He's a remarkable human being, and he has put his faith, his entire life, in God and in his family and in the support of dear friends. And I think the one thing that's been overwhelmingly heartwarming is truly the outpouring of support that he's received. I also think that anytime you go through adversity in life and tragedy, you have a time to reflect and reprioritize. And for Bob, that means serving other folks. It doesn't mean title, it doesn't mean stature. It never has, frankly. But what it really means is helping those in need. And so what I see of Bob, it's an interesting blessing that's come out of this, where he has the time and the energy to simply focus on others, folks that have lost, parents that have lost a son or daughter in combat, folks that are newly widowed, people that are suffering and hurt. He has a greater empathy for those individuals having gone through what he's gone through, which he never had before.
There was a picture of him walking, and it was in the newspaper. I don't know if you saw it, but his shoe was up like this, and there was a hole in the bottom of his sole.
Yes.
Did you see that?
I didn't see that, but I've seen the shoes many times.
Tell me about that.
I just think that,
it was symbolic of what has happened.
It is.
A hole in his shoe.
It is, but Andy, and Bob is a man who could care less about his shoes, his clothes, about material things. If you were to see a different picture of Bob, you would see, to this day in his closet, he has slippers that have duct tape on the bottom because they have probably a similar hole. And Bob, they're comfortable. He loves them. They're the broken-in pair of slippers that he will never get rid of. He doesn't want any new ones. It's just a matter, as a reflection of his values, that Bob doesn't care about stuff and things, and he's never done that.
How has this changed, this tragedy that this family has gone through? How has it changed your family? How are the moments together different than they were before?
You know, there are 5 of us in our family, and my parents are both deceased, and so over the last few years we've always been close. But when you don't have family anymore, parents anymore, it really is incumbent upon the kids to make sure you're getting together and celebrate together, and we've really done that. What this has done for us is, to a sibling, we have all become much closer. We talk all the time. We pray together. When we're together, we always pray for Bob. We pray for all of us and Bob's children. We pray for his family. And so the times we still laugh and have a great time, as we always have as a close family. But there's probably a little bit more of a solemn nature at some point in every get-together as we think about what's happened in the case and how our parents may feel about this, and you know, just how devastated and sad they would be. So we do reflect on that a bit, but overall our time is to encourage Bob, to pray, to lift him up, to make sure he knows without a doubt that we believe in him 100%. The 4 of us know Bob better than anybody in the world, and we know that Bob would never knowingly break the law, and so we remind him of who he is.
When you get together, when you consider all of that, and the emotional time and the solemn nature of gatherings now because of what you've been through, when the guilty verdicts came down, he was emotionally, for a split second, incapacitated, a weeping, a sadness. From your conversations with him, describe what was going through his soul at that time.
Andy, that was probably one of the most difficult times in any of our lives, and his children, his siblings, that it was really a shock and disbelief. We actually were all on our knees at the time he got the call that the verdict was in. We were all in St. Patrick's Church praying, literally praying for each juror and for wisdom for those jurors. And so we were very hopeful that this was a sign that there would be a positive outcome. He gets the phone call, and we rush over to the courthouse. And I think we all, again, going back to the premise, we know Bob, we know his values, we know his integrity and his ethics, and we all really believed, our family believed, there's no way that 12 people could find him guilty of these crimes. So it was devastating. It was devastating, I'm sure, for Bob. We were all weeping. We were all in such shock and disbelief for those first few hours after the verdict came down.
Obviously, you think the jury got it wrong. Yes?
I think that Bob should never have been obviously charged with these crimes to begin with, and certainly to have a guilty verdict was just devastating.
And obviously, it was the jury instructions that led them down that path. You think that they were flawed?
Well, I think legal speculation would suggest that. You may have read the 3 amicus briefs that have come out in the last week by Harvard law professors, by the National Association of Criminal Defense Attorneys, by former attorneys general from Virginia. And there's a common theme in those which suggests that what is the definition of official action? Was it too broad in this case? And if the definition, per legal scholars, if the definition stands, then essentially it would criminalize politics as usual, common political behavior in every state house across this entire country.
And that is the basis for your appeal. Now, in the end, I guess my question is, how does he fully vindicate himself, Bob McDonnell?
It's going to be a long process, Andy. I think one is certainly legal, and we're very, very pleased that the court, in granting his bond pending appeal, has also expedited the process of appeal, which we are very hopeful that we'll have some final decision by summer. I think that's part of it on the legal end. I think ultimately it's really difficult to get restore a reputation. Bob, as you know, had a sterling reputation as the Boy Scout. We heard in trial as the guy who does what's right even when no one's looking. There have been a number of things that we've heard that describe Bob, and so it's going to take a while. It's a longer term proposition to fully restore his reputation by the general public, but those who know him, and there are hundreds of them that know him, have no doubt of who Bob is, and they believe in him 100%.
Ray Donovan was the Secretary of Labor under Ronald Reagan, and he was charged with corruption. And he was eventually found not guilty of corruption. And he came out on the courthouse steps and he said, "Now where do I go to get my reputation back?"
Yes, I read that, yes.
Where does he go, Bob McDonnell, to get his reputation back?
You know, Bob, it's a great question, Andy. I think Bob is just going to be Bob. He is going to be a normal citizen. He's going to do what he does in the community, which is being active in his church. He's very active in the Healing Place, a ministry, an organization up in Richmond. He's been active in different organizations here locally. He has, for years, blessed people with just random acts of kindness anonymously. Bob's going to be Bob, and I think through really walking the talk and doing what he does and being who he is, that the people he cares about already know who he is, but I think from a broader sense, they're going to get to know, folks will understand who Bob McDonnell really is.
And you're talking about walking the walk and talking the talk. Is there a wringing of the hands saying what might have been had this not happened?
Oh, I don't think so. You know, we just, as Bob just believes that, you know, God has ordered his steps, and that's true when he ran for office, that's true. And what lies ahead? It's a great time to, frankly, after 20 years in politics, to focus on family more. He has a new granddaughter. His boys, his youngest, the twins, are graduating from grad school in May. So it's really a time that he can focus more on his children, and now on their children, and just spend time, doing community service.
What was it like when he saw his first granddaughter? This was his first grandchild.
Yes.
Janine's daughter, born in January, earlier this month. What was it like for Bob? What was the scene? Were you there at the scene when he was with his first grandchild?
Yes, I was.
And describe that scene.
It was very emotional. It was it happened to the baby was born on Janine's birthday, so I'm sure it brought back not only not only the joy of just seeing this beautiful, perfect life come into this world, but I'm sure in many respects it was a flashback for him of the day that his first child was born. So I think it was extraordinarily emotional for all of us. It also provided, this is before we had the reprieve on the bond, and so it also provided just a great bit of joy for our family, and it was a time of just celebration and blessing, and all about Janine and her husband and her new baby.
When he walked into the courthouse, he was looking at 12 and a half years. Halfway through, the obstruction charge kind of went away, and it was reduced to 6 to 8.5. The first good thing that happened to Bob McDonnell in an entire year of going through all of this was when he was given a 2-year sentence. I know he was given a 2-year sentence, but it could have been so much worse. And do you look at that as the first good thing that happened to him in a year, that he got a 2-year sentence?
Well, there have been a lot of good things that happened to him, but from a legal standpoint, that was pivotal. We just are so grateful for the judge to have the mercy and the grace, and many of the comments the judge made were just very genuine and really spoke to us. So yes, I think we felt like that day was a victory to have this sentence the downward departure so strong.
Now, it was also asked that he would be incarcerated in the Richmond area. Did he get an indication that he would be going to Petersburg minimum if that were the case?
We don't know about that.
That had never been explained or anything. Okay, so The judge said he can stay in the area, which was a good thing also. And then he gets bond pending his appeal. Tell me about that. I mean, that's the second good thing that happened to him in a short period of time.
Yes, yes. Yes, that was just a great day.
Because you
on
were
Monday.
not expecting that, were you?
I wouldn't say that we weren't expecting that. I mean, you know, Andy, when you go through things, you always have to have faith. You always have faith, and you remain hopeful. And when you know that you've committed no crime, you do believe you're in it for the long haul. As we say, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And so, when those briefs were filed and accepted by the court, by those three amicus briefs that I mentioned, it laid it out. The arguments were incredibly compelling. These were independent folks that wrote these briefs to the court, and when those came out and they were accepted, we did have a bit of encouragement that perhaps the bond pending appeal would be honored.
That the three-judge panel looked at the arguments and said there are substantive issues here, significant issues here that warrant his being released on bond, because if they are found in his favor, could overturn the verdict or remand it back for a new trial.
Correct.
So when you get this type of wording from the Court of Appeals, you've got to feel good about that. That at least this is the track that they're thinking on.
Yes, it was very encouraging, and again, you know, not to be overly optimistic, because there's a long way to go before full vindication occurs. But certainly it was a moment that we have been waiting for, and it was a time that we could actually breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief and just feel very blessed and thankful for their ruling.
Because that argument is going that, at least with the United States Supreme Court, that they like narrow definitions of official act, not broad definitions. And did you not get the feeling that the Fourth Circuit is feeling that way too?
It's only speculation, but certainly I think.
But more than speculation, because they have allowed him to be free on bond, because these are real serious issues that are not being summarily dismissed.
I think what was published in those briefs exactly was that there are significant legal issues at stake that need to be examined here, that could result, as you said, in a reversal or a new trial.
And then the next positive thing that happened, you see where I'm going with this, is that they fast-tracked it so that it's not lingering, that he isn't left dangling in the wind, if you will.
Yes.
That there is going to be a fast track to get this final issue resolved.
Yes, yes. Just from our family's perspective, that you know, we like to think that is a hopeful sign. Again, we remain positive and with faith and with a lot of hope, which we must. But yes, it's nice to even think about in a matter of a few months that this could all be behind us.